Hi guys, it's Debbie with Debbie J's Crafting Corner, and I've got another Christmassy video for you guys. This is using the classic Christmas collection from Spellbinders. This is a brand new thing that just came out, but you probably are thinking, wait a minute, I think I recognize those. So let me go ahead and show you what we've got. First, we've got the bottle brush trees duos. So it is a couple of different bottle brush trees with their little stands. And that's what they look like, but it does look pretty much, especially in my mind, exactly like what I remember from last year, because I've got those dies too. So I went into my stash to pull them out to let you guys see, are they the same or are they a little bit different? So we've got those. Here are the other ones. Yes, identical, but these are much smaller. So now that means that if you've got both, you've got 4 different size trees to go on your cards. You can build yourself a little Christmas forest. So I think that's super cool. So we've got that. Another thing that I've got from that same collection is Santa's here. And again, this is something that looks very, very familiar to me with the little Santa, because I absolutely loved him last year in the Santa Lane Christmas kit. So Santa Lane Christmas kit had this cool stamp set and the dies and all the other things. But here's the thing. Let me pull out the paper with this so that you can see. Santa is facing the opposite direction. So they're the same, but this Santa is facing off to the left. This one is facing off to the right. So you've got double. So you could make as many Santas as you want and face them whichever way that you want to. That also means that when you're die cutting, because you could also do this with the other die, have it facing opposite direction. But one of the nice things that I like about using cutting dies with your die cutting machine is that curved edge on the card. You could do kind of the same thing if you're wanting to use a cutting machine like the Cricut or Scan and Cut or whatever. But it's going to give you a sharp line instead of that rounded edge that it looks really, really polished. So that just means I've got twice as many Santas. I've also got from this other kit, I've got the little sled and stuff, so I could play with that too. What I'm going to use today though are these two, the new bottle brush and the Santa. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I've got all the bits cut out, so I've done all the die cutting, but I'm going to make a background. So my thought is I'm going to have a snowy background, taking some blue cardstock and covering it with some anti-static powder because I'm going to do some stamping and embossing. And I'm using Simon Hurley's new stippled background stamp for this. This is also my first use of the stamp. But isn't that gorgeous? This is going to turn out fabulous. Okay, so I'm going to stamp it down with some Hero Art white pigment ink, unicorn white, and that's going to add some, a decent amount of whiteness to my card. But I've also found that it doesn't really turn out as bright, I guess. It's not as bright of a white. Part of that could be that my stamp pad probably needs to be re-inked. Part of it might just be the ink soaking down into the paper. This is one of the only pigment inks that pigment ink doesn't soak down in the paper. Anyhow, what I'm doing is I'm putting down all of that ink on there, and then I'm going to just place my panel on top, and then we're going to burnish it down. Then I'm going to heat emboss it using some Recollections white embossing powder that I've had in my stash forever. So I would say use what you have. You can always upgrade later when you run out, right? So placing that down and just burnishing that down. This is a paperweight that I made a while back and just added some foam to the bottom to make it easy to slide around. And that should be good. Let's see how that did. So I can see all those dots, but you can't really see it as much as what I want. So that is the reason that I am going to be putting some embossing powder down on top of this. And now we have a pretty good snowy background. And there's some bits that I'm not sure if I got all of it. Okay, it feels good. Sometimes you can't tell if you got everything embossed right or not, but that background looks lovely. Love, love, love it. Okay, which tells me I'm going to be using Simon's stamp more because it is super cool. So now that the background is all done, I love that, I'm going to go ahead and put my trees together. This is going to be quick and easy, but since it's so fine, since the trees have got such little pieces, I am going to use a trick, just putting some glue on the back of my hand and then tap them into it. Now I got a little bit too much glue on that one. That's okay. And then I want to try to make them as straight as I can on there. So I'm going to start up at the top and just put my tree down and then line it up kind of in the middle. And since it's liquid glue, it does slide around a little bit, which is great. Also, it dries clear, so that big glob of white there, you're not going to see it once this dries. So we've got those. I'm going to set those to the side and let them dry while I start putting Santa together. Now, one thing I did is on the piece, one of the dies cuts out all of these pieces, and all of these pieces are basically white. So we've got the beard, we've got the trim of his hat, all of those fun things. But what I want to do is I also did his face. So for his face, I need it to be a color other than white. You could definitely cut this out of some pink cardstock. I didn't have a color pink that I liked in my scrap bin, so I am looking in my markers. So I'm going to basically just color up his face. So let's see, that one's too bright. Okay, so my FS3, and I always forget which one it is that I like the most. FS3 is going to be the one that is going to work the best for his coloring. So I left the piece in the die, in the paper, instead of removing all the pieces to make it a little easier to color. Just adding that color down. I believe these pieces here are probably for his face as well, but I'm going to leave them white at the moment because I'm not 100% sure. Okay, just evening out the color a little bit. And we're going to go with that. And now I can start putting Santa together. I'm going to let the ink kind of soak in to that first. And I'm going to just start dumping out all of our bits. So this big piece here is actually Santa's body. We're going to have his belt goes right around in the middle. So that's probably the easiest one to see. So I'll go ahead and put that together. And then out of gold, I've got his buckle. Bottom of each of his boots, there is a little line there that is also out of some of the gold. The gold does take a little bit of time to adhere. This is some of the gold mirror cardstock that I cut this out of. So I'm going to go ahead and put these down first so that they have the longest amount of time to dry while I'm assembling the rest. And I just realized I needed to put his belt down after I put this white piece of his belt. So let's see if I can pull this up without ripping everything. Okay, so I'm pulling up enough of it. So yes, sometimes you do get that happen. So I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on the back of his trim and go ahead and get that in place. And then I can tack back down Can tack back down his belt. Here's the other half of that trim. Go ahead and put that in place as well. Okay, now I'm going to put some glue back on the back of his belt and get that back in place. So I am going to go ahead and grab his face. Here's Santa's face, and we're going to start putting his beard and mustache in place. So here's his beard. And it looks like that goes right about there. And there are some little etched lines on all of the dies to show you where it's supposed to go. I now see what those last two bits in there are for. One of them is his mouth. So let's go ahead and color that up. I'm going to color it in black, and then I can put that done. That means you could basically have it red or black or whatever color you want to for the inside of his mouth. I'm just sticking with how it is on the diagram. And going with that. And if I'm not mistaken, this actually, I'm looking to see how this is going to go on there. Okay, so I can actually glue this in right at the base of his mustache once I get the mustache down. So there's this mustache. Put a little dot of glue right there at where his mouth is supposed to go. There we go. So we've got Santa's little mouth. And then we've got his nose. It needs to be a little bit of a darker pink because it is Santa. You know, he's got a cold nose. So I think I'm going to go with my FS2. So his nose is going to be a little bit darker than the rest of his face. And just put that in place. Okay, great. And now on his facey, we've also got the little pieces that were cut out for his eyes. Well, I don't want them popping out. I'm going to actually color those. So I'm going to add a little bit of tape to the back of this to hold them in place. And then I can take a pen. Okay, there we go. I'm going to just take a black pen and color in his eyes so you'll be able to see them. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and put his little hat on. And then the trim for his hat. And then the little fuzzball for the end. Okay, perfect. So now I can go ahead and add this to the front of our Santa. Santa is mostly done. Isn't that awesome? So we've got two arms. So we've got one arm here, which could hold his bell, and the other one can hold on to his sack. So I have also got his sack here, so we could go with that. I decided to make it out of some of that same red cardstock, but you know what? I think I need to add a little bit of shading to that around the edges a little bit. Let me grab out some ink real quick and a brush. So I do want you to be able to see it a little bit better. So I'm going to use a little bit of bee sting and just a little bit of the red ink. And I'm going to first do it a little bit on the inside. That's not the part that's going to be seen, but I want to see what this looks like on there. So I don't really see much, so let's add a little bit more. Okay, so that does give it a little bit of dimension. Love that. Usually just adding a little bit of the same color will do that, but sometimes you need to get a little bit of a darker color, but you never know until you try it on the cardstock as to what it's going to look like. Okay, and I'm mostly just going around the edges, so it's got a little bit of a dimensional shape. So that's a little bit more. So Santa is going to be holding on to his sack there. This is the piece that's going to be attached to the sack. And then let's figure out all of the pieces that we've got for his hands. Okay, I'm also going to go ahead and assemble my bell, which I should have done earlier because of that gold mirror cardstock. So let's add some glue to the back of the bell and just place that onto the gray cardstock. Like I said, sometimes it doesn't really want to stick that well, so it does take a second to grab hold. Okay, so we've got his little bell, and let's put the clapper in. Okay, so I'm going to let the bell dry a little bit. It keeps on trying to catch to my fingers. Okay, so after fighting with this for a bit, I made the decision that this little piece, I think this arm belongs on both sides of his body because I want him to hold the bell. That is the only reason. So this is going to be holding onto his sack. So we're going to go ahead and adhere that down and put that one in place. And I am just going to kind of look. Yeah, that looks like it's supposed to be there. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to adhere our little mitten onto this piece here, and then we will put that piece of white cuff on there. We do have another cuff, a different shape, in case this one does not work the way I expect it to. But I think that works. Perfect. So note to self. Use the bent arm for both sides if you want him to hold the bell and hold the sack. Okay, so that looks good. So now this little arm looks like it's supposed to be there. So now we can just tuck that back behind Santa, and he is ringing his bell. There we go. So now we have our little Santa. So I do need a little bit of ground to go with my little Santa. So I'm just going to freehand cut a little bit of a snowbank here. That looks pretty good, and then I can put my little trees on. And then we'll have our little Santa. Oh, this is so cute. And I am actually adhering everything down flat this time. That's not something I do a lot. I'm letting the layered cardstock be my dimension on this one, because we do have quite a few layers like that, but I'm not going to add additional bulk with my foam like I normally do. Oh my gosh, that looks so cute. Look at that. I love it, love it, love it. I am going to trim it down a little bit though before putting it on a card, and you know what? I think I might actually adhere it down using some foam after all. Oh, I'm loving this. Okay, so I'm going to just pop that down, give it a little bit of a border. Okay, one trick that I need to do on this one, because I'm having trouble lighting it up, is using a little bit of liquid glue on the back of your foam will help you with a little bit of wiggle room, so you can move it around a little bit before putting it down. Because this is too cute of a card. It is just absolutely adorable. I am loving it. Okay, now that looks like it's pretty almost straight. It's not quite close enough to the top. I'm gonna go with it. Gonna say that it's good enough. Okay, nobody else is gonna know that it's not perfectly center. So now all I need is a sentiment. Grab out my clear embossing powder and hit that with my heat tool. So cute. So just adding a little liquid glue to the back and placing our sentiment in place. And that finishes up this card. So thank you guys for dropping in. That's going to finish up this card video using the new classic Christmas collection from Spellbinders. You guys have a wonderful day. Be sure to check out this playlist to see more videos where I'm using Spellbinders products, and I will see you soon. Bye guys.